Good morning, everyone. I should like to welcome you to this first General Assembly of the Circular Plastics Alliance. My name is Ian Anderson, and together with Sue Phillips, we'll be hosting the assembly today. Now, 2019 seems only a short time ago. Many of you took part in drafting and then signed the declaration of the CPA. And in 2020, despite the COVID-19 crisis, you've worked hard to implement the declaration. I've personally lost count of the number of meetings you've had at working level, but there certainly were a lot. And then on the 10th of November, your first 3 deliverables of the CPA have been published. Now, this is an important first step, and there's more coming soon with new deliverables of the CPA to be published early next year. This first General Assembly will be an opportunity for you to look back at what you have achieved in the year and a bit since the signing. And it'll also be a chance to look forward at what you will want to do next year. So what we will do today is basically invite you to reflect on what makes the CPA useful for you, and also reflect on what more you need to do. You'll also have the occasion today to meet other members of the CPA and to get to know each other better. I know it's not as engaging as being in the same room together and sharing coffees and having lunch, but in my experience, after now working online since March, we can get quite close to that feeling. And I do hope you'll have some good conversations along the way today. Now, just a few words on housekeeping to make sure we all have a good meeting. I'd invite you to keep yourself muted when you're not speaking. And if you can, keep your camera on if your bandwidth allows, that's a good thing. But please, when you're in breakout groups, then always keep it on so you can see your fellow participants. We will be working also with Slido today. We'll be collecting your questions and your ideas in Slido, and you can see the link in the Zoom chat. So I'd invite you to go to slido.com, and then log in with the hashtag B750. You can see the link on the screen. It's also in the chat in the Zoom room. Also, another reminder, you are familiar with the CPA online platform. All the info about today's meeting and about the CPA is, of course, stored there. And there's a link to that in the chat as well. Finally, I'd like to just give you a reminder on how to have good conversations when you get into your small groups. Most importantly, first of all, just really listen to each other and build on each other's thinking. And then secondly, speak your minds and hearts openly. And finally, last piece of advice, enjoy yourselves. Have fun.
Today, we'll hear from 2 commissioners and from 5 speakers who will all share their views on the CPA. We'll break you into small groups, 4 times in total, so that you can discuss amongst yourselves. At 12:45, after discussing how we can make a real impact with the CPA, we'll listen to the Deputy Director General of DG Grow for the concluding remarks before closing at 1. Before we start, really, let's just take a moment to get quiet and think about why it is we're here today. Let that question sink into you for a short while and sense what is coming back. Then think about what are the outcomes you would like to see of today's General Assembly of the CPA. Thank you. Now let's get started.
I now want to invite you to check into the assembly and see who is here. So we do have a little poll, a little Zoom poll, and it's coming up now. So I'd invite you please to click in the sector you belong to. That way we will get an idea of who's represented here. So as you can see, we have a very mixed audience. There's a lot from packaging, but that's a large sector. But construction, automotive, and other are a large sector as well. So I hope the other will enjoy themselves as much as the ones that have a real sector we can actually see. So that's what we see in terms of who is in the room. I'd now invite you to look at a second question, and that will appear in Slido. And the second question is really about how useful the CPA is to you. How useful is it to your work and to your business? So the question is, if we did not have the CPA, we would have to invent it. So let's see how you place yourself. So if we did not have the CPA, we would have to invent it. Do you completely agree? Absolutely not. Do you agree somewhat? No opinion. How are you placed? So if we did not have the CPA, we would have to invent it. And we're doing good. We've already have more than a third of the vote in. Well, I'm happy to see that 90% are positive. I'm speaking like a real pollster here. 90%, of course, it's split between completely agree and agree somewhat, but that's basically it. There is a very small body of opinion that thinks that it doesn't make any difference. A few are undecided, but overwhelmingly, you all find that the CTA is a good thing. So I'm very happy that we have got such backing for the idea. But now let's move on to the first real operational part of our meeting. So before our break at 11 o'clock, we'd like to focus a discussion with you around what makes the CPA useful for you and for your sector. So to start off that discussion, we will give you 4 short videos to inspire your reflections on this and your discussions. We've recorded statements from the speakers simply because it gives us better quality and also a better check on the time. But our 3 speakers after the commissioners are all here for Q&A afterwards. So listen to the videos, to the messages, and then think about what makes the CPA useful for your sector, including in business and in economic terms. So our first speaker today is Mr. Thierry Breton. He is the member of the European Commission responsible for the internal market. And Mr. Breton is also responsible for industry, entrepreneurship, SMEs, the digital economy, and the space and defense industries. Thierry Breton has held political office in France, where he was the Minister for the Economy, Finance and Industry. He has an engineering background, and he's also a former CEO of several national and multinational companies. Thierry Breton.
Dear members of the Circular Plastic Alliance, welcome to the first General Assembly. The crisis we are going through now in its second wave is unlike any other in our recent history. Indeed, the crisis has confirmed the importance of being more resilient collectively, leading the green and digital transition, improving our circular efforts, including that of recycling plastics. Plastics have brought enormous benefits along with enormous challenges. On the plus side, plastics have played a huge part in improving fuel efficiency in cars in the last 20 years by providing lightweight alternatives to heavier steel. On the downside, however, every year, Europeans generate 25 million tons of plastic waste, but less than 30% only is collected for recycling. One of the main purposes of the EU plastic strategy is to make sure that there is a strong business case for transforming the way products are designed, produced, used, and recycled in the EU. The Circular Plastics Alliance plays a crucial role in this effort. I know that the COVID-19 has deeply affected Euro activities. I think, of course, of the construction, automotive sectors. I think of the plastics recyclers facing low oil prices or plastic converters faced with high uncertainties. Despite the crisis and the challenges ahead, you have not given up on this alliance. You have kept working to increase the use of recycled plastics. You have adopted a work plan on product design, an R&D agenda, a report on collection and sorting of plastic waste. I want to praise you for this absolutely excellent work, which has created high expectations for this alliance. I count on you to continue on this path to make plastic recycling a profitable business, to build an industry in which there is a clear business model for recyclable products and recycled plastic. This alliance has a target, using 10 million tons of recycled plastics in Europe by 2025. I count on you to deliver this ambitious target. I welcome your pledges to buy and sell more recycled plastics. That is a very good start. But this is not yet sufficient, if I may say so. The pledges are not yet reaching 10 million tons. I call on you to increase your pledges or to make a pledge for those who have not yet done so. Dear members of the Plastic Circular Alliance, with the Circular Plastic Alliance, you are building the circular economy. You work as a value chain for plastics, in packaging, in construction, in other agriculture and other markets. My role as a commissioner responsible for the industry is to support circular business models. And as a commissioner for the internal market, I want to see a single market for recycled plastics. I am looking forward to working together to achieve this goal. And I wish you a very good meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Our second speaker is Mr. Stefan Sommer. Stefan is the president of the Vynova Group. He has over 30 years of experience in consulting, business development, and general management in leading chemical companies. He is the chairman of Vinylplus, the voluntary initiative by the PVC industry for sustainable development. He is a member of the board of PlasticsEurope Germany. His background is business economics. Stefan Sommer.
First of all, let me clarify that I signed the CPA for Vinylplus and not for Vynova. Vinylplus is a sustainability initiative of the PVC industry. It exists since nearly 20 years. So recycling is a cornerstone of our philosophy, business philosophy, since many years. Vynova is a PVC producer, a virgin PVC producer, and we signed we are a member in Vinylplus, and through that we are involved in recycling since many years. Vinylplus has started by bringing all the players along the PVC value chain together. So the resin producers, the converters and the recyclers. They all came together with the goal to recycle PVC as much as possible. So we started 20 years ago with very small volumes. In the year 2011, we made a pledge saying that we would achieve 800,000 tons of recycled PVC applied in new products by 2020. We are now in 2019, we reached 760,000 tons. So we are close to the 800,000 tons. So that worked pretty well. We believe that the CPA is something like a very large Vinylplus. Vinylplus, as I mentioned before, is only addressing the PVC value chain. The CPA goes far beyond. The CPA addresses all polymers, so all plastics in Europe, and it addresses not only the value chain players, that means the producers, the converters and the recyclers, but also the brand owners and the end users. So it's a very holistic approach with one single goal, reaching 10 million tons of recyclates used in new products by the year 2025. And therefore, one very important work stream in the CPA is also the design for recycling. Only if you design products that they are later recycled, then you do the right thing. Because designing products, multi-layer, complicated polymer mixtures, which can later not be recycled, does not lead anywhere. So a big success, and what makes the CPA valuable, is the holistic approach of the value chain, and also those functions which make recycling possible and facilitated. I believe the most important action of the CPA is, and that might sound a bit funny, but is that it has been created. I think the initiative by the Commission to bring together more than 200 players, companies, associations, NGOs, government entities, etc., into one initiative, which is the CPA, is the biggest success itself. It's more than 200, I think close to 300 parties meanwhile, and they address all the important application areas of plastics. It's about building and construction, it's about electronics, it's about packaging, it's about agriculture applications. So it's everything, all the applications. And then it's all the important functional areas. It's research and development. It is the monitoring of the volumes which are being delivered. It is the design for recycling. So it's all the important functional steps which you need to address in order to make recycling a success. 2025 is the year of the CPA target. So until then, we have all committed to have 10 million tons of recyclates in new products. That means the building and construction industry represents approximately roughly 20% of all plastics used in Europe. That means the building and construction industry has to deliver 2 million tons of recyclates in new construction products in the year 2025. That's the first target. In the year 2030, the number will be higher. How much? I honestly don't know, but clearly the 10 million tons target of the CPA is not the end. 10 million tons is approximately 20% of all plastics produced in Europe. So you could say only 20%. Well, it will be a challenge to achieve the 20%, but once we have achieved them, we need to continue. Design a new product for recycling and then collecting as much clean construction waste will enable those ambitious recycling targets to be achieved until 2025 and definitely beyond. I think the CPA is created by the EU Commission for a certain pull effect. The EU Commission has realized that there's a gap between the pledges of the industry participants, the value chains, how much recyclates they can deliver, and how much recyclates will be used in new products. There's a gap, a significant gap. So the CPA is important to bring all the value chain players together, all around one table, and tell them, you guys are all responsible to close that gap. So the sheer existence of the CPA is important, in order to make that goal achievable. So it's also the way the CPA is organized. We talked about that it addresses all the important application areas of plastics. So there's no escape. Wherever you use plastics, all the plastics are part of the CPA. And then it's the key themes, the key functions. We talked about it already. It's design for recycling. It's the research agenda. It's collecting and sorting. So all these key functional processes are part of the CPA. And only the combination of all that, a lot of willing partners, all application areas of plastics, and then also the key processes, the key themes, all together put into one holistic system is what makes the target achievable. And in order to orchestrate all this, the CPA has been formed and is thereby essential to reach these targets.
Thank you, Stefan. Some excellent food for thought there for your forthcoming discussions. Our third speaker we're going to hear from now is Miss Annick Boyen. Annick is the head of External European Affairs of Unilever. She represents the Packaging Working Group of the Circular Plastics Alliance. As Unilever is chairing this group under the umbrella of Europen, the European Business Organization for Packaging. Annick Boyen.
First of all, I want to thank DG Grow and the organizers for allowing Unilever to be part of this journey, also as head of the Packaging Committee of CPA. Let me start by saying that plastic has its value. It's a valuable material and absolutely crucial for the safe and efficient distribution of our goods. It helps to fight food waste, and its carbon footprint is much more attractive than some of the other materials. So plastic has its place, but that place is not in our streets, it's not in our rivers, it's not in our oceans. That place is in the circular economy, where it's used, reused, and recycled. So the important thing for us is to keep plastic packaging out of the environment and into the plastic loop, so it continues to have a value. That's why at Unilever we have a vision of a waste-free world where everyone works together, so packaging has a value and no element leaks into the environment. So with that vision in mind, we came out 1 year ago with some pretty stretching ambitions. Those ambitions are that by 2025, we want to include 25% recycled plastic or PCR in all our packaging material. It also means that 100% of our packaging material needs to be reusable, recyclable, or compostable in the next 5 years. Allow me to take you through our strategy on how we want to deliver on those very ambitious commitments, including the increased uptake of PCR in all our products. We work around 3 work streams: the know, the less, and the better plastic. Know, where we look at alternatives materials or naked products. Less, where we look at eco-design principles, but especially better. And I just want to show you an example based on our Signal toothbrush offering in France, where you see a number of examples here according to those work streams. I think the easiest unlock for us right now is the last one in terms of better plastic, where we try to include as much as possible 100% PCR in our products. Here you see an example of a toothbrush. An important consumer insight as well is that when we make certain claims on our packaging in terms of recycled plastic, when you, for example, include 50% PCR, what consumers are actually thinking is, but then the 50% is bad. So from a consumer goods perspective, we really have an incentive to go for 100% claims as much as possible. Hence also our challenge to include as much PCR as we can as part of our product line. But beyond toothbrushes, if we go to the next slide, you also see a number of examples of other products where we try to include as much PCR, ideally 100%, because we really see that that moves the needle when it comes to consumer preferences. So here you have an example of our Hellmann's mayonnaise brands, 100% made of recycled plastic and focusing on more taste, less waste. It's also where you can really move the needle in terms of systemic change. So earlier this year, we came out with a commitment to make sure that 100% of our Dove bottles would be made of 100% PCR in North America and in Europe. That is a virgin plastic reduction of 20,000 tons per year, which indicates the absolute need of a good working single market when it comes to recycled plastic and the uptake of recycled plastic. So I hope by showing these examples that it's very important not only for Unilever, but for all the players in the fast-moving consumer goods area to make sure that we can accelerate and that we can reach those stretching commitments, not only by Unilever, but also by a lot of our colleagues in the sector. So how does the CPA help us in our journey to a more integrated circular economy? Well, first of all, it helps us to unlock that dilemma to make sure there is more plastic uptake in our packaging by working with many, many players in the value chain. So not only the FMCG, also the sorters, the recyclers, the R&D community, authorities, all working together to trying to look for those unlocks and saving problems together in a collaborative spirit. Let me give you a few examples. We are identifying barriers and working on solutions for the uptake of recycled plastic, also by agreeing on design for recyclability to ensure that packaging placed on the market can be collected, sorted, recycled, and be 100% part of that closed loop circular economy. We're also working on quality standards for recycled plastic, and we help the European Commission and also other parties to really make sure that our recommendations and suggestions are also part of the Packaging Waste Directive and some of the other legislative initiatives, where the CPA can really be used not only as a sounding board, but also as a piece of intelligence where the industry comes together and help to figure out those unlocks. Another work stream is the identification of the untapped potential and working together on R&D and investments, including chemical recycling. So our point of view is that a lot of the packaging can be recycled through mechanical waste. But there are packages that just aren't being able to be absorbed and part of the plastic loop as part of the mechanical recycling. So how can we make sure that we can also incorporate other, maybe more unconventional methods at this point in time to be part of the recycled uptake longer term within Europe? So as such, we're exploring various solutions, and we're very grateful and actually would like more partners to join the CPA to bring in different perspectives where together in a constructive atmosphere, we can really try to unlock the solutions that will help not only the FMCG sector, but also other players in the value chain to really accelerate and deliver on the European ambitions of keeping plastic packaging in the loop, in the circular economy, and out of the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Annick, Boyen, for these great examples of reduction of the use of virgin plastic and the shift into recycled plastics. I'd now like to welcome the final speaker of this first round, Mr. Pekka Pesonen. Pekka is the Secretary General of COPA, which represents, as you all know, the farmers of Europe, and of COGECA, that represents the agricultural cooperatives. Pekka is an agronomist, and he's worked as state secretary in Finland for agriculture and forestry. In Brussels, he's worked for the interests of Finnish farmers, the forest owners, and the agricultural and forestry cooperatives. Pekka Pesonen.
Commissioner Breton, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to join you today in the General Assembly of the Circular Plastics Alliance on behalf of COPA-COGECA, representing European farmers and their agricultural cooperatives. Our organization formally joined the Circular Plastics Alliance in July this year. We see this initiative as an opportunity to exchange views and best practices across the whole relevant value chain. And believe me, we are very committed to this work. It is about keeping our countryside and our soils and waterways clean, safe, and fit for future generations. It is about leaving no plastics behind. It is to reduce plastic waste in all sectors and accelerate recycling, and this is essential for us all. But importantly, it is feasible through a growing number of good examples in Europe. We strongly believe that an open dialogue could help to formulate a better policy design and to address this urgent environmental issue. This can yield remarkable results in our endeavor to close the loop in plastic waste streams and contribute to the objectives of the Circular Economy Action Plan under the European Green Deal. Plastics used in agriculture represent approximately 2% of the whole European plastics market volume. In our sector, this plays a significant role in helping production to be more efficient by reducing the use of inputs. This is perfectly in line with the aim at using less inputs such as pesticides, fertilizers, and energy, while increasing the production in quantity and quality. While the use of agricultural plastics can be justified by more environment-friendly and economic production, we must ensure that their end-of-life treatment does not lead to pollution in landfills or risk incineration. Over 60% of the European agricultural plastics used is covered by such schemes. But we need to do more to divert plastics from waste disposal and increase recycling opportunities. The bulk of agricultural plastics is made of the two most common polymers, polypropylene and polyethylene. Naturally, it makes sense that their recollection and reuse is one of the most feasible processes. In many countries, farmers are involved in the plastics end-of-life management with significant results. In fact, over 75% of plastics are being collected and recycled. This is a good example of an achievement that we should promote amongst the general public. And this potential must be fully unlocked, and stakeholders in the whole value chain should be involved. All partners in the value chain, from farmers to treatment centers, are doing their part to improve recycling further. This is possible if there are enabling recollection schemes applying extended producer responsibility shared by all actors in the value chain. I would also like to mention that biodegradable plastics used in agriculture as mulch films are also a fundamental tool enabling farmers to implement a shift transition towards a more sustainable agriculture. We aim to reduce land contamination and emissions, enhance substitution of fossil-based materials, and enhance land-based sinks in the land use sector. I would like to mention the European Plastic Culture Strategy as a good example of designing agri-plastics management in a sustainable way, and it would cover the economic, environment, and technical efficiency. We need a solid base with the EU-wide standardized data collection. We need reporting as well as economically viable, tailor-made schemes in the member states. The Circular Plastics Alliance provides an essential platform for discussing the way forward in key sectors. Bottom-up approach in local and regional plastics collecting schemes is essential. Farmers in many member states have proven that these schemes could work with high efficiency, benefiting all actors in the value chain in a manner which covers all the three pillars of sustainability. I would like to close my intervention by stressing that farmers and their agricultural cooperatives are proactive and very well involved. This is about sustainable agriculture and circular economy. The objective of no plastic to nature and 100% recyclable is achievable, as experience shows. In addition, any new legislation should not put limitation to collective initiatives, but on the contrary, should support them to accelerate national collection schemes implementation. Ladies and gentlemen, let me end my presentation with a more personal note. When my parents took over our 300-year-old traditional Finnish farm in 1966, they told us kids the most important principle of environmental sustainability. In our old farmyard, where damage had been done to the numerous windows, we were told to pick up every single piece of glass in the second we saw the reflection from the ground. I thought it was very laborious and boring. But after a few years of doing this, all dangerous pieces of glass were gone, and we could run the yard with our bare feet without the risk of cuts. Lesson learned: it is about our daily routines and continued vigilance for the common good in future. This would be the very same principle that we should use in plastics too. Thank you once again for giving me the opportunity to contribute to the General Assembly today.
Pekka, thank you very much for that intervention and your reflections on the need for the whole of the supply chain to be involved. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I hope you had an interesting conversation. We're going to allow you just a few more minutes for you to write your questions in Slido. Please don't forget, you will see the Slido questions going on your screen, and you can vote for them so we can see which questions and which ideas are the most popular. The link is still in the chat if you didn't manage to get in earlier. I would please ask you to stay concise, and we will ask the panel to reply in an equally concise manner.
So while we're waiting for the participants to write questions, we can see there's already a lot coming in, dozens of questions coming in, and some are getting to be very popular. So I think the top question at the moment is one the panel can already start thinking about, and maybe thinking about who would like to answer that one. But we'll give it a couple more minutes just for people to finish up writing the questions, and also to vote for the questions that they think are most important. We see other important questions: end of waste criteria, harmonizing regulations in each nation, whether the CPA can keep in mind the specifics of individual sectors. These are all very pertinent questions, and in just another minute or so, we'll ask the panel to address some of these questions. If you want a specific member of the panel to reply to a question, then please add their name to your question. But if you want them to choose who feels courageous and ready to answer it, then just put the question. You don't need to put a name. So we're getting a lot of questions in, and I think we can already see that there is one way out ahead question of harmonization. So I'd like to put it to the panel. How can the CPA make sure that the regulations will be harmonized in each nation, not like the SUP implementation? I don't know who who of you would like to reply to that? If you have a good idea, or if you have a proposal for the CPA, who should be doing it and how should it be done?
I can maybe comment on unpacking what's behind that question. And I have a lot of sympathy for the question and also a lot of sympathy for the solution and coming to a solution together. I think that it also links to the second most popular question in terms of making sure there is a coherent approach within the union where there's no fragmentation and where there is a single market, as Commissioner Breton indicated as well, to make sure that raw material can be scaled and can be scaled at a very competitive price. Although I think we have representation from Portugal in the CPA in terms of national governments, my pledge for more people to join the CPA, also on different levels, could be a potential unlock to make sure there is a more coherent, not only EU policy, but it's also aligned on various national, regional, and to a certain extent, even very local levels to really make sure and create those unlocks that we have one single market and less fragmentation when it comes to the uptake and availability and competitive pricing of recycled plastic all across the Union.
Thank you very much, Annick. The second most popular question, as Annick pointed to, unfortunately, doesn't have an immediate answer because the commissioner is not here to defend himself. But it will, as all the questions, get an answer in the second round, in the written report.
Perhaps there's another member of the panel who would like to look at that question on involving local authorities. Is there someone who would like to look at answering that question, please? Well, Stefan, could I invite you? Are you?
No, I think one of the initial, I would say, deficits of the CPA was exactly what has just been mentioned, that not enough national or even regional bodies are a member. It's very difficult because they are the recycling schemes existing in all different European countries are different. The legislation is different. All additional regulations, for example, on landfill bans, which are very important in order to foster more recycling. Also incineration. All these, the legislation is still very regional. On the other hand, the intent of the CPA is to be European-wide, to have a European-wide initiative of producers, converters and recyclers. So from that perspective, it's very difficult to have a European initiative with all this different national and even regional legislation. So it would be very helpful if the CPA manages to attract more national governments or strong metropolitan regions into the CPA. So that maybe would be a good exercise for the CPA to really get to broaden the base with these institutions.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Let's look at a question which I would really like to put to all three of you, and get your individual perspectives on that. And that's the question: what, in your opinion, is the greatest bottleneck for the uptake of recycled content? So if I could invite you to answer in turn, I think it would be interesting to hear three different perspectives on what is the greatest bottleneck. I don't know who wants to start.
I can start first. For the fast-moving consumer good industry, it's the business case and the price issue. If you look at the price of PCR and recycled plastic versus the price of virgin plastic, PCR or recycled plastic is 10 to 15% more expensive currently than virgin oil-based plastic. We do it because we believe it's the right thing to do. We do it because we ultimately believe it will drive consumer preference. But that price differentiation, also with assuming that the price of crude oil will go down as well, will only become more challenging if we're going into a more recessionary environment. So that's the first one, price. Second one is the quality aspect, especially if we're looking at issues like food grade quality for food packaging. That quality needs to be absolutely, without any doubt, of the highest level. So how can we make sure that we continue to upcycle, keep it in the loop, and have that high quality versus downcycling and just use it one time and then it goes to a plastic recycled bench in a park? So I would say price and quality of recycled raw material.
And if I may, I would add availability of those services to this. And if that's readily available parallel to normal daily routines, especially at industrial sites, and it's linked with the action itself. So if you have a delivery of goods, raw materials, inputs, and for instance, if it's linked at least partially with the same action, then it would make sense to all operators to get involved. But if you have to organize yourself differently to take the materials somewhere and especially also taking into account the price factor to pay for it, the incentive will be much lower and much more difficult to come through with.
Okay, it's difficult to add much more to what Annick and Pekka have said, but let me try. One more point is clearly addressing the quality issue. Yes, that's very important. That often the quality of recyclates is lower than virgin. I'm representing the PVC industry. There, we are lucky enough that recyclates made from PVC have the same quality as virgin and can be recycled up to 10 or even more times. So that helps, but that's not the case for most products. And I agree that a lot of focus has to be put on delivering high quality recyclates. The second point is about availability for recycling. So we need to strengthen sorting and collection a lot because there are lots of mixed polymers, mixed plastics, which are difficult to recycle. They end up in incineration and landfill. That's a real problem. So cleaner plastics out of good sorting and collection operations are very important. And the third point is definitely, as I mentioned before, it's landfilling. As long as there are certain countries in Europe, certain regions where landfilling plastic waste is extremely cheap, there is no motivation to recycle this type of plastic. So we need the European-wide landfill ban or making landfilling so expensive that it's always more attractive to recycle. So these are commercial, market-driven initiatives which are necessary to increase the uptake of recycled volumes.
So what we basically are talking about is a tailor-made cascade principle for plastic use, but then I take it that it would be difficult to organize.
If I could just interrupt you just for a moment there, because that's an interesting thought. And we've had another question as well about, can the CPA keep in mind the specifics of individual sectors and take them into account? Construction, automotive, packaging, and perhaps you could feed that back into the answer that the question that Pekka just asked as well, to continue this conversation just a little more before we look at another question.
Yeah, I think the CPA is addressing it. I mean, there are working groups, automotive and packaging and building and construction and electronics. So I think the way the CPA is organized, and we as a PVC industry, we are leading the working stream building and construction in the CPA. And yes, I I think the sector-specific interests are very well represented in the CPA. And the challenges for building and construction are very different than those from automotive and E&E. So I think that's taken care well of in the CPA, the way it's organized. My personal view.
I don't know, Pekka, if you want to come back and answer your own question.
Okay, that's a lucrative opportunity. Well, we have some. The reason I raised this is that we have had this discussion in the forestry side in cascade principle to be used for timber and wood material. And it sounds easy to say that, well, you have to put a bit of a cascading there, but we know that it doesn't work. Even if we support the principle, because of course, in all our private lives we understand the logic and we could use it, but that would have severe consequences to the market operations, single market, and the competitiveness of the sectors. And I take one. The reason that I actually raised this is what Annick pointed out, and quite rightly so. When we talk about agri-food chain, in certain cases we have to consider the plastics almost to the medical purity, medical cleanliness and safety standards, because it's about food that we are going to eat. But then on the other hand, for instance, in general packaging or boxes and secondary material, we are much more flexible. And so therefore, within each of the sectors, we may have a set of objectives and principles already that we need to respect. And I know this also very well from my food industry background, when we were talking about recycled materials already in the 1990s. And one of the obstacles that we actually faced was that we couldn't take the risk in certain cases with the consumer preference or consumer safety. But then on the other end of the scale, we had, let's say, kind of voluntary initiatives that were hugely popular because everybody saw that it works very well. For instance, general wholesale packages that would work just fine. But then I think, especially when it comes to reusable plastics, I think Annick pointed out this park benches problem that how do we order? And these principles are something that I would hope that CPA would actually develop. So what options do we see? Because we cannot recycle everything without an end. We have to recognize that there are different streams that we need to keep separate for various reasons. And this is why I raised the food industry so much, because we have a major issue there for food safety and we cannot endanger that.
Thank you for that. Just to continue. Sorry. We're talking about there's another question that we can perhaps bring in there and maybe turn to Annick and answer the question: should the CPA work on the end of waste criteria for plastics?
Yes, that can be big. So to me, my personal opinion on CPA, what to cover, what not to cover, is not to be too dogmatic in terms of what's relevant now, what's relevant in the immediate term, and what's relevant in the long term. And as such, the beauty of the CPA is that it brings together a number of players in a very constructive way, where we put our cards on the table, but where we're also very open about what some of the challenges are and how we need to unlock them. And I want to also manage expectations in the sense that, yes, it is a complex problem, but it's a problem that we all need to solve. What are the elements that we can use now? I mean, as long as that plastic doesn't go to landfill, doesn't leak in the economy, I'm okay with park benches. I just want to clarify that. But, ultimately we need a scale, and we need to scale it on a business level where we keep it constantly in the loop. And I think it's also important, to involve consumers in there. My experience with consumers is they say, okay, but why do you wait 5 years to reach those commitments? Why can't it be tomorrow? And they don't have a message in, oh, it's complex and various layers and blah, blah, blah. It's up to us to look for those solutions. And if we see that some of those problems come up, let's address them in this platform. Let's see how we can create additional relevant working groups. But also let's see how we can be optimistic in the sense that R&D and the number of focus we have on solving this problem, the different players, the collective brain power that we have in Europe is also used as a source for good to unlock the various elements. And I'm quite optimistic in terms of how R&D, how future fit technologies can almost help us to address some of these issues that we see now in terms of end of use, in terms of clean waste streams, in terms of other possibilities. I mean, it's future forward thinking, but artificial intelligence can help to solve the pre-sorting element. We ask consumers now to have everything in different buckets, not mix it up, because then it will have an impact on the quality of the recycled material. There are projects in China where, through artificial intelligence, if I put a certain bottle in front of a dustbin, that dustbin will open one specific side if you have 3 options, and that's the side of that recycled plastic stream. So let's also be optimistic and work together really in terms of future fit infrastructure, but also how we can proactively embrace and scale and test some of that future fit technology that hopefully will help us to solve the plastic issue in general.
Just want to check if anybody else wants to come in on the end of waste criteria question. And if you don't, is that a nod, Pekka, or?
No.
Well, anyway, if you don't, I'll just mention that there are a couple of questions for the Commission, and as the Commissioner could not be here today, those questions will get answered on the platform after the meeting. So we'll make sure that we don't miss anything. I see there are a couple of questions. I'll get back to those, but there is a question directly for Stefan Sommer, and the question is how Vinylplus and possibly other materials producers could serve as a role model to take over operational responsibility in other plastic value chains. Do you have any good ideas, Stefan?
Yes, I think Vinylplus could be a role model simply because it's existing since 20 years. And as I mentioned in my presentation, it has achieved quite good results. I mean, more than 750,000 tons of recycled PVC last year. That's a good number. It's still not enough. We need to do more. Even for our own pledges, we need to achieve more, but we are on the right way. And I think the success of Vinylplus was from the very beginning that polymer producers and recyclers and converters worked together. And the starting point was PVC and is still PVC. We so far did not manage to broaden this approach to other polymers, but we know that all the other polymers are very intensively looking at doing something similar. We are talking with them. We are trying to build a broader scope, because at the end, in an ideal world, you would have just a common approach for producing, recycling or converting plastics and thereby delivering the CPA targets all across Europe. So from that perspective, I think, yes, Vinylplus can be a role model. We are very open to discuss about everything here. and we are very open for these type of dialogues. We have started them already, and at the end, yes, it's also in our own interest that this whole initiative is really broadened all across Europe. That's why we also like the CPA that much, because as I said at the beginning, the CPA is something like a very big Vinyl Plus initiative with the advantage that even a downstream like users, brand owners and so on are also participating. So at the end, it's the broad approach all across Europe, all across the functions and value chains, which make the CPA successful. So if the CPA is successful, then it's basically the best also for Vinyl Plus, because it leverages this to a much broader extent.
Thank you, Stefan. There are a couple of questions on standardization. I just want to put both of them together really and see if any of you would like to answer them. So the first question is how to make sure we have a common definition of recyclable polymers, and connected to that, Christian's question on identifying the need for standardization both for mechanical and chemical recycling. So who would like to address this need for common definitions and standardization, and how to go about it, notably?
So I can start with some points of view. I think it's always good if we all sing from the same song sheet and use labels that cover the same things. So that's definitely important. At the same time, I think don't. In a way, don't waste too much time just going deep on all the definitions, because we need to accelerate, and we need to accelerate quickly. So it can be in parallel, but I wouldn't say it's one stream and then we wait until the outcome of those definitions, because in parallel we need to accelerate. We need to test. We need to see what fails. We need to see what can scale. And do that very much in parallel. But, it would be useful. It would be good. It would also create, I think, unity. It would help to tackle the potential danger of fragmentation of the union. In terms of chemical and mechanical and chemical recycling, we believe that especially when it comes to food grade recycled material, chemical recycling should be considered as an option. We absolutely believe that as much as you can do mechanically and keep it in the loop, you should do that. But there are certain elements that cannot be solved through mechanical recycling. So rather than go to landfill or incineration or waste to energy or other options, can we then go and look for more innovative ways of recycling? And the element of those innovative ways of recycling, sometimes also called chemical recycling, is that it brings that polymer back to its initial state. I often explain it to my daughter as a Lego block. So you have a beautiful castle, and then chemical recycling brings it back to that individual Lego block that you can then use again. And I think that definitely when it comes to food grade material, it could scale enormously how we look at recycled material, especially for food packaging. So that's definitely something I would encourage EFSA, the Commission, and other players to really dive into, embrace, and look at a way where in Europe we can be one of the front runners on that level.
I think this is this has been excellent, Annick. I think you working for Unilever answer a question in an excellent way, which is addressing basically the chemical industry. So I'm very thankful for that. Yeah, I can fully agree. We should try to do as much mechanical recycling as possible, simply because from a CO2 footprint, it's the best recycling, the best way of recycling materials. So from that point of view, yes, and research and development must go in that direction. How can I optimize mechanical recycling for all polymers? But as you said, Annick, there are simply limitations. Limitations due to the polymer itself, limitations due to the mixture, etc. And for that, we need other innovative recycling technologies. And chemical recycling is one. And lots of formidable companies are investing a lot of resources in making chemical recycling a success story as much as mechanical recycling is. And yes, it is complementary. At the end of the day, we need a mix. We need a mix of mechanical recycling, chemical recycling. There are some other technologies within chemical recycling which are closer to mechanical recycling, which are solvent-based recycling technologies and so on. There's lots of R&D going on with the intent to make as much recycling possible from a technology, from a technical point of view. Not talking about the availability of material and so on, just from a technical point of view, how to recycle as much as possible. So yes, it's complementary. Each technology has its limitations. Each technology has its advantages, disadvantages. We simply have to go in parallel. And as Annick said, we have to do it all fast, not spend too much time on trying to standardize, etc. No, have the creativity of the scientists work and develop many parallel solutions, which at the end makes us achieve the goal of a higher recycling uptake achievable faster.
But I think we need to be realistic in a sense that we need to have those alternatives. But at the end of the day, for obvious natural conditions reasons that we have for our enterprises and businesses all across the EU, we have to have a number of opportunities available all the way to the, and I hate to admit, landfill and incineration would have to be an option in certain cases when it doesn't make any sense from societal perspective or not even environmental perspective that we organize, for instance, long transportation route or excessive use of resources to recycle that in a very specific manner. So we have to have these alternatives, but I think it's more to do with the finding a balance that you have options, and then in case you wouldn't be able to fully utilize them, taking into account some parameters, you would be able to go for the next best or the best available technology that is that is an alternative in case the first option is not available. So this is something that we have to discuss every day, at least in agriculture and forestry, where we have, for instance, long distances, relatively cheap raw materials, and relatively high cost of transportation vis-a-vis the unit value of the product. So this is something that we also need to bring into the discussion.
You're on mute.
You're muted too.
Sorry. But if I could just stay with you, Pekka, for a minute there. You were talking about finding a balance and some of the specific issues that you have within your role as you represent the farmers. And I wondered if this kind of approach of finding a balance, of talking to the different sectors, is the way that the CPA can help engage farmers on the ground and talk to them about their specific issues. How do you see that?
CPA role, you mean?
Yes, sorry, the role of the CPA.
I think the CPA role vis-a-vis the farmers would go through these existing initiatives, because there are a lot of them. Our members, for instance, are very concretely involved with some of them. Especially, we got strong support for this work from Denmark and Sweden, Denmark and France, and that would entail that we need to involve in CPA role vis-a-vis those organizations, structures that have been set up to this sector and to this activity. I think that should be the starting point where we start doing this. The sheer number of farmers and the diverse conditions actually prohibits that from us, in a sense that it would be impossible, at least in the first round. But I would see this as once again a transition, and those organizations that are already involved should be very much the first instance for our communication. So that what are the needs for us to harmonize? What can we do about certain principle and standardization that we have discussed? What is the key message and the best practice that we can extract from these same organizations? Because in some cases they have decades of experience, and we cannot throw that out of the window, because that's very much linked with the motivation of these stakeholders and enterprises, and in our case farmers, that they are committed to this work. And so if we sideline these organizations that exist, sometimes they are completely outside the agriculture sector, like I mentioned, 4H is a good example of an organization that doesn't have direct involvement of agriculture as such, but they have some experience that we should use, and I think that's a good starting point. But then all avenues are open if CPA wants to make a contribution to a wider audience out there. Of course, we don't have anything particular to oppose that, but then at least the starting point should be to take into account what has been accomplished.
Thank you, Pekka. This is truly a passionate discussion.
Hello again and welcome back. Okay, so we'd now like to steer you in a discussion around the question, what are the next key steps for the CPA? You're going to hear 3 short videos again to inspire your discussions that you're going to have in small groups, and we'd ask you to listen carefully and reflect upon the next key steps for the CPA. Our next speaker is Mr. Virginius Sinkevičius, who is a member of the European Commission in charge of Environment, Oceans and Fisheries. Virginius Sinkevičius is a former minister and member of parliament in Lithuania and has a background in economics and European studies. Virginius Sinkevičius.
Thank you for this invitation. It's always a pleasure to welcome a promising initiative and a high ambition to deal with an issue of major concern to our citizens. 9 out of 10 Europeans are worried about the impact of plastics on our environment. Expectations are high, both on the policy and on the business side. We are called to action. We know that plastics can do a lot for a sustainable circular economy. But if we do not address the pollution problem, the pressure to adopt ever stricter measures will only increase. Back in 2018, the Commission set out a clear vision for the future of the plastic sector, with circularity at the center. 2 years later, we have seen enormous changes, but that transformation is still in its early stages. Many of the challenges are still the same. We still need to reduce marine litter and increase collection, and both plastic, recycling and the use of recycled content are still very low compared to other materials. But a lot has changed in the meantime. With the Green Deal, Europe now has a widely accepted vision of a more sustainable future, pushing policies like reuse and recycling right up the EU agenda. And under the deal, we have adopted a new circular economy action plan, which is more ambitious and more wide-ranging. For plastics, it will bring 3 things. It will bring a sustainable product policy, a legislative initiative to ensure that sustainable products, services and business models become the norm. That's a flagship initiative for 2021. It will also bring a tighter focus on key product value chains. There are 7 of these areas, and they include plastics and packaging. And then thirdly, it will bring much greater ambition when it comes to waste prevention and enhancing circularity, a toxic-free environment. There is that other major change as well. The pandemic has exposed many of our vulnerabilities. The impact on our health, on societies and economies is profound and will last a long time. But it also brings opportunities. One of the main lessons is that we need more resilient economies. And one sure route to resilience is to reduce waste and increase recycling. This drives down materials demand, and by lowering greenhouse gas emissions, it builds up resilience for the longer term. It also reminds us that plastic waste can serve as a useful resource. What we have is a chance to lay the ground for a new normal, for a world built for long-term sustainability, with resilience designed into the structure from the start. Because when you come down to it, that's what our recovery is all about. It's not a future that the Commission can build on its own. We need buy-in across society and from the stakeholders who can really make a difference. That's one reason we are reaching out to you. The Circular Plastics Alliance can help in many ways. You can certainly help with boosting waste collection and achieving the plastic recycling targets in the EU waste legislation, with the implementation of the new extended producer responsibility, and with defining a new ambition on recycled content in plastic products. We are also working to revise the essential requirements of the Packaging and Waste Directive so that all packaging is recyclable or reusable by 2030. Your input to that process will be extremely valuable, and we are looking at the new frontier in packaging waste management, waste prevention. We have reached the highest level since measurements started, exceeding 170 kilograms of packaging per person per year. More than 30 kilograms is plastics. We have to revert together this unsustainable trend. To give the right signals at EU level, the plastic-based own resource will be part of next financial framework. I need you to go to the same way on this journey to less waste, more value. Your alliance can help new ideas flourish, become the springboard to conquering this new frontier. By investing now in these sustainable products of the future, you are setting the pace for everyone else. I believe that the Circular Plastic Alliance will be instrumental to reinvent plastics, make it part of a true green transition story. We have a lot to do, and it's very important to have you on board. I look forward to our continued collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you to Commissioner Sinkevičius for those encouraging words of welcome to collaborate. The second presentation we're going to hear is by Mr. Martin Jung. Martin is the president of the Performance Materials Division at BASF. He's also a board member of PlasticsEurope, and Martin has studied chemistry and mathematics and has a PhD in polymer chemistry from Eindhoven University. Just as a gentle reminder, Martin, you have 6 or 7 minutes, and we will be reminding you when you're getting close. Martin Jung.
Thank you very much, Ian, and good morning, everybody. And good morning to all supporters of the CPA. On behalf of PlasticsEurope, it is my great pleasure today to highlight the progress and also the next steps of the CPA. As we have heard this morning, since February 2019, tremendous progress has been booked. Today, CPA counts over 240 signatories already, showing great commitment of our entire industry to increase our circularity. And clearly, the first results are visible. There, we can already move to the next slide. And to the next one. So just to remind you, the main task of the CPA, if you go to the next slide, is to deliver a plan for design for recycling, for collection and sorting. If you please move to the next slide. The R&D and investments, recycled content and monitoring. So that's the plan. And that's the plan for the 5 key sectors that are listed in the outer ring. Today, the first 3 concrete plans have been published, and this is a design for recycling working plan for 19 selected priority products that represent already 50% of European plastic waste. Also published is a collection and sorting report showing the state of play for Europe, and the R&D report laying out requirements in terms of R&D. So remaining are the next 2 steps, that is the monitoring system and the untapped potential report. Now, the untapped potential report is, I believe, the essential element to bring various deliverables together into one roadmap to 10 million tons. And it describes the way to implementation. This roadmap will show how to exploit additional potential, starting from the plastic waste collected to plastic recyclates used in Europe. In more detail, it will show the how, opportunities for more collection and sorting, for recycling and better design for recycling, how to deliver more quality through harmonized standards, and how much investment is needed to reach the 10 million tons. And last but not least, there are a couple of industry examples that will be included in this report towards circular plastics. I would also like to remember that pledging opportunity is still open until end of January 21, and we should encourage ourselves to introduce new pledges here. And on a personal note, I can say today that our company just uploaded a new pledge yesterday, and I'm very proud of that one. The important next step is to put a monitoring system into place, which allows us to track the CPA achievements. Now, so how does that work? Here, the collaboration of all actors in the CPA is needed, and it will be also the first of its kind in the European Union. This system will gather data in a harmonized way across Europe and sectors, and each step of the recycling value chain will ensure full transparency, data reliability, and traceability. At the same time, and importantly, it will enhance our data and our know-how about the way the European plastics waste is managed and reintroduced in our economy, and it allows us improvement from there. The monitoring system will integrate existing and new tools, and all tools have to fulfill minimum common definitions and requirements for the contributors. And those contributors will be data generators, such as recyclers, converters, data collectors. These are non-profit legal entities collecting and consolidating data. And then in the end, the monitoring consortium that will represent the whole value chain, supervising the system and aggregating data and ensuring proper counting. All rules will apply to all contributors in the same way. So this will require our involvement, our discipline and commitment, and this is a job for all signatories here. The timeline to implementation is finalizing the monitoring system and make sure the system works. Then data collectors will be selected in the first half year of next year. And then an extensive communication towards the data generators will be rolled out in the second half of next year. The data generation and collection will then happen in 22, and then we're all looking forward to the first CPA monitoring report that will be published in 23. In conclusion, I want to say CPA is really in motion and it delivers. It is making very big steps forwards, and let's keep all our commitment to deliver a solid roadmap to the 10 million tons and implement the first of its kind monitoring system. I also have to say, we are an industry in transition. Our industry is undergoing a rapid transformation now towards a circular economy. I see clearly the progress that we're making in the CPA, but it also needs some time to adjust to this new circular economy in this 22 to 25 timeframe. It will need space, it will need openness to innovate, openness to all ways of circular economy, and we also need the certainty that all kinds of directions are supported by a regulatory framework in the end. On behalf of PlasticsEurope and the plastic industry represented there, I can say we are fully committed to this journey. I wanted to thank you for this opportunity here, for the enthusiasm that is there, and this unique joint endeavor. Let's make it happen. Thank you very much. Back to you, Anne.
Thank you. So our third and final presentation is going to be given to you by Sue.
Thank you. So our third and final presentation is by Elena Santiago Cid. Elena has been the Director General of CEN and CENELEC since January 2010. She's responsible for the direction and management of the CEN-CENELEC Management Centre. She manages the relations between CEN-CENELEC and the European Commission in particular. Elena has a degree in electronic engineering from the Polytechnic University of Madrid. Elena Santiago Cid.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank the European Commission for inviting me to the General Assembly of the Circular Plastic Alliance. It is a pleasure to be with you today and have the possibility to share CEN and CENELEC view on the pivotal role of European standards in support of the circular economy, and in particular of circularity in plastic recycling. We are proud to be part of the CPA since its early days. Since we joined in 2019, we saw the opportunity to reiterate the CEN and CENELEC commitment to a full circular economy through standards, while supporting the update of recycled plastic up to 10 million tons by 2025. The European standardization system is a success story lasting 60 years already, supported by a network of 34 national standards bodies and committees in 34 countries all over Europe. Having one single European standard instead of 34 national ones significantly support the single market. When possible, we go even beyond Europe and try to have a single global solution thanks to the agreements that we have with the international standards organizations, ISO and IEC. In 2021, we will start with the implementation of the Strategy 2030. Our ambition is to strengthen the European leadership at international level, making standardization further recognized as a catalyst to support the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. The European Plastic Strategy explicitly refers to European quality standards, and it says that it boosts recycled content in plastic products. The Circular Plastic Alliance reinforces and implements the concept by committing to revise European standards on the quality of plastic recycling and recycled plastic. The upcoming standardization request, in which we're working hard under the CPA, and the standards that will result from it are a very concrete example for the market to increase the uptake of recycled plastics. Tangible benefits raising from the use of the standards are numerous and include the possibility for public authorities to list quality criteria in public procurement, to generate consumers' confidence related to the recycled content of the products they purchase, and to enable a stable and predictable quality of the recycled plastics. The CPA working groups and the CEN-CENELEC technical committees, such as the one on plastics, on energy-related products, or on packaging, they are working hard to map the industry standardization needs. Through the preliminary mapping exercise, we have already identified more than 100 standards that are actually supporting plastic circularity. I would like to mention a few of them. On recycled plastic, we have a standard that provides calculation procedure for the recycled content of a producer, and another one that lays out those properties for which the supplier of the waste shall make information available to the purchaser. On energy-related products, standards exist to define criteria for reusability, recyclability, and recoverability to improve material efficiency. And also in the waste of electronic and electric equipment, we have standards available that formulate technical requirements for collection and treatment. If you are curious to know about how standards are supporting the circularity in plastic, please join us in the CPA General Assembly side session organized by CENELEC and the European Commission the 11th of December. The ultimate goal of the standardization request is to develop standards fit for the plastic value chain that can contribute to the 10 million tons by 2025. Closing the loop requires that all streams and steps are taken into account, from the design of the product across their collection and processing to the quality of the resulting raw materials. Surely this is a challenging exercise, which requires that different sectors to cooperate and to work together. But let's not forget that that is what standardization is about. Standardization is about consensus making and a collaborative effort. In my long experience in CEN and CENELEC, I can see now how we have to address more intertwined sectors and deliver not only on safety matters, but also on environmental and digital needs. I have a great trust that we will succeed in this undertaking. The European standardization system is well-oiled and ready to welcome more experts. And I really want to take this occasion to call on all the signatures of the CPA to join the European standardization system. We need to commit together to further address the challenge of plastic recycling and to put the expertise that we have available in Europe to the service of European standards and the goals of the CPA. The wider the participation is, the wider market uptake of the standards we developed. Previous speakers have been already spoken about the tremendous results of the CPA. My own ambition today is to work in keeping this spirit and continue working together towards the 10 million tons by 2025. This challenge can turn into a great opportunity to support the European economy and to be sustained with European standards, to build a more sustainable Europe, stimulating growth and innovation. I'm sure we could look back in 2025 and be very proud of what we have achieved. Looking forward to continue our discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Elena. So welcome back. We'll now give you a few more minutes to write your questions in Slido if you haven't done it already. And remember, you can also vote for other questions if you want to see them go higher up in the food chain. The link is still in the chat if you didn't manage to get in. And please remember to be concise. And then we'll ask the panel also to answer in an equally concise manner. And just a final reminder from me: remember, a question is a short statement followed by a question mark. So we'll give you a few more minutes, and then we'll have a look at what's coming in.
I'm seeing a number of questions that are coming in about standards. So I think, Elena, I think you need to be prepared to discuss standards. We've seen a question. Sorry, I'm just finding my Slido back. A question on bringing together national standards. Perhaps one that you could answer, Elena, while we're waiting for other questions to come in. How can the CPA support the use of standards so that once we've agreed them, they can help deliver our vision? And can you give any examples of how standards have helped to create scale and how best to do this?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, I think it's very important because I have also seen in the Slido a few references to national standards versus European standards. So once we publish a European standard, there is an obligation in all the national standards organizations to withdraw national conflicting standards. This is the beauty of the European standardization system, that one standard replaces 34 possible conflicting standards at national level. This is very important to support the single market. I think that, and this is also very important because we will have a common interpretation at European level about how to deploy specific measurement methods or some testing requirements or even some definitions on how to apply that. I think that I have mentioned already in my presentation a few examples of standards that are, for instance, harmonizing the European standards, harmonizing the information that the producer needs to deliver to the market and to the purchaser, and that is really helpful for the economy of scale. It is very important also to use European standards when they exist in public procurement, because I think that I have got a comment about the economy of scale. If we first of all agree, and for that we need the absolute participation of as many experts as possible, but also as many interests as possible in the standards making process. But when we have agreed on a common solution, then let's exploit that harmonization at the maximum possibility that we have for the single market. So to use standards in public procurement can be a good one. And if in the public procurement we make reference to the same requirements, first of all, we are ensuring a level playing field. So anyone that is actually fulfilling the requirements, the technical requirements for the standard, in this case for plastic recycled, auto-recycled plastic, then we can all compete at the same level, and we can improve the economy of scale. So this is important. I also would like to mention something that I consider important for the standardization activities, and that is the connection with research and development. The fact of getting closer to innovation work and to close the gap between when we start to develop a new technology and when we start standardizing need to be shorter, because life cycle of products are getting shorter and shorter. And the sooner we standardize, the faster we will be able to deploy results in the market and to implement the plastic strategy in this case. I hope I have managed to answer.
Thank you very much, Elena. I think you managed to answer several questions at once, in fact. I'd like to put another question to you, and maybe if you want to start on this one, Martin. It's about communication and increasing awareness of CPA activities to the European citizens. So how can the CPA be more effective in getting out its message to citizens, not necessarily the specialists who are hopefully already members of the CPA, but how can you get it out to citizens? Any good ideas?
Yeah, thank you very much. I have to say, very intriguing question. I went through my mind like, what could we do? It is a very good question, because a couple of initiatives are actually more known probably in the public, like the CPA. If I look, for instance, at the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, which is also a voluntary commitment of companies, probably much better known and much more propaganda going out compared to the CPA. And like thinking along these lines, probably what we could do is, number one, we are all members, we are all committed to the CPA. Perhaps we should, number one, use the CPA, make it more part of our own communication and also our company communication, association communication, and so forth. And I believe also the European Commission could help in this by perhaps providing material that we could include in our communication, but also at the same time making it also higher on the agenda that it is known in the public. Not always talking about the big regulations that we're doing, but also about the CPA as a voluntary commitment, as I believe a super initiative there.
I don't know, Elena, if you wish to come in on communication on that question as well.
Well, I think that Annick has mentioned in the previous panel the importance to get consumers also involved. It is extremely important to get the consumers involved, at least from the part that I know in the standardization activities. That is a huge part in the communication process. The fact that they understand what is it that we are doing, and that we build confidence in the initiative, and also confidence in the new technology. So I fully share many of the positions or the comments that have been made this morning. Communication is extremely important. I think it's a way to engage the European citizens in common goals. But it's not only communication, it's also to listen to what they need to say, the different stakeholders, small and medium-sized enterprises, the societal stakeholders, big industries, and to get to a common solution for all of them. So yes, I think communication is essential. I think we all need to make a huge effort, a collaborative effort, and we will not succeed if we don't manage to explain very well what are the objectives that we want to get. And if we don't work together in establishing the path to get to those objectives, taking into account the difficulties that creates in the market. This is something that we see every day in the standards community, is the feasibility in the implementation of what we want to achieve. It's not always the best solution, but the best solution that we can agree to make it workable and feasible.
Thank you very much. I think you already answered the most popular question from Venetia, but there is a very technical question which you might want to address, and I'm not sure if you answered this one already. This is from Kristen on how CENELEC can ensure or help to achieve horizontal communication between the relevant technical committees for the SHRAG execution. And maybe you could say a few words about that.
Absolutely. This is extremely important again. Well, first of all, I think I also mentioned that when I was making my short intervention, that what I have seen during the last years is the need to have more and more cross-sectorial communication. This is the advantage that we have in CEN and CENELEC, that we are putting together two organizations that are completely multi-sectorial. And we have got hundreds of technical committees. During the last couple of years, the number of joint technical committees have increased, but also the groups that coordinate the work programs of all the technical committees that are working on specific topics. I can think now, for instance, for the SREC on the circularity of the plastic, we have got a strategic advisory board on environmental matters. That is called SAVE. And actually SAVE is responsible of coordinating or to kind of always have in mind environmental aspects in all the work that we do in the European standardization. So SAVE can be a very, very good group, responsible of coordinating the work of the technical committees. But in the end, it must be the experts working on specific issues, the one developing the standards. So I don't have any doubt that in case there is a need even to establish a coordination group to address the standardization request, there is a possibility to do that. Though we try to simplify, not create more groups that are necessary. And if we have already a group that is working in one specific area, we allocate that responsibility to one. So for the time being, I think SABE can do that job.
Thank you so much for your reply. I'm going to squeeze in one last quick question for Martin before we close this session. We had a specific question come in for you, and oh, it's just disappeared from my screen, so I have to find it.
I have it here. I can just read it.
Okay.
Good.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So for Plastics Europe, to Martin Jung, how can we achieve a clear and comprehensive overview of what innovative recycling, advanced physical and chemical processes can contribute to reaching the EC goals? What is the role of the CPA in this, as well as Plastics Europe?
Excellent question. Thank you very much, Susan. Number one is you've seen the untapped potential report in this, the list of deliverables for CPA. For sure, the untapped potential report comprises a bit of what is achievable and what can be done, and by which kind of technology. But in the end, also this is kind of a moving number. As long as innovation continues, the number for recycling and the potentials for recycling actually just open up. And I think this is the point where we are. We should support all kinds of technologies for recycling, and then our option space just becomes bigger. Specifically, also the role of Plastics Europe, we try also to set out a kind of study and investigate more, how to describe these potentials more, and what role would each individual technology of recycling play in this game, and where could we end up in the end. So I think there's still a lot to explore, but the first answer and the first source would be the untapped potential report.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of our speakers, the Commissioner and Elena and Martin, for taking part in the panel afterwards as well. We've seen in the second part of this General Assembly that the Circular Plastic Alliance certainly has a lot of work ahead. But I feel we've also seen that the CPA has the knowledge, the capabilities and the outreach to the value chains to get solutions. I want to reassure those people who ask questions that we didn't manage to get to reply, that all remaining questions will receive an answer in writing via the CPA platform, as usual. I see that a lot of people have already started to type in Slido. You may see that this time in Slido you have the option to reply to comments, not only just to like them, but there's a reply function that you can comment on somebody's comment. So we'll just have a look at a few while we have a few minutes left before we move to the closing. And I see that the first two in the list both talk about providing real examples as a way of highlighting the impact that we have made, the CPA has made on the ground. So a request for providing real life examples, either to consumers, or I see as well examples to the Commission where enterprises have stopped. There have been roadblocks due to uncertain regulatory situations. Excuse my pronunciation of that. But I see now that there's more Slido results coming in. Please keep typing as Ian and I are reading through these, and these will also be posted on the CPA site, the platform, at the end of our meeting.
So one of the things that's coming in is actually not a comment, but rather a question, and this is about consistency and coherence among the CPA, the Plastics Pact, and EU legislation, and also support from the wider Commission for the CPA's work. Maybe we will have a reaction to that today, but otherwise that will also come into the summing up on the site. The statement here from Jane on the importance of involving member states and standardization, and there is also the need for funding mechanisms to be accessed.
There have been a number of comments about the need to engage and involve member states. So those have come through a lot more as well from the different groups. We've seen a lot of likes for that. And we've just seen as well, can the CPA work with the Commission to identify EU or other public funding to help address challenges identified? So again, something else on funding.
And here's one on increasing the demand for recycled products and involving the local authorities at regional and municipal level, and to support the SMEs as one of the tasks for the CPA to achieve impact.
The issue of communication has come back again a few times, and again, sort of, we're talking about real issues and real stories. Again, we've got some a request for good news stories as well to spread far and wide for people who are not just the experts, as we were talking earlier, but the end consumers as well, to involve them and to be able to communicate that clearly.
So we're seeing a lot of good proposals come up, and all of those will be collated, and some of the proposals are questions, so that they will be replied to in the usual manner on the platform. But I think we should look now to see if we have our last speaker with us.
I think we do have our last speaker with us. And as we move towards the end of the CPA's first General Assembly, I'd like to call upon Maive Rute to give her concluding remarks. Maive was appointed Deputy Director General in DG GROW at the beginning of November, and she has worked in the European Commission since 2005 in a number of different roles and Directorate Generals, including Research and Innovation and the Joint Research Centre. Ladies and gentlemen, Maive Rute.
Thank you a lot, and good morning or almost afternoon from my side as well. It's a pleasure to address the first General Assembly of our new Circular Plastics Alliance. And you guys, you are really showing a good example how to make things happen. And I'm really pleased to see that despite of all of us being on our virtual kind of meeting, you have kept up the energy, you have kept up the enthusiasm, and you're coming with concrete ideas, concrete proposals. So quite impressive already. I am, as you heard, Deputy Director General in DG GROW since November, and it has been really my great pleasure to get to know that the Circular Plastics Alliance is one of those industrial alliances which will help us deliver on the green and digital and resilient European economies. And today's workshop, today's discussions are giving me hope that it's not going to be only, let's say, another nice meeting where we discuss matters and then we go all our own ways, but you guys, you have already committed to some important changes, and this is something that I'm very, very pleased to see. You have committed to have 19 plastic products at least to go towards recycling. You have committed to really increase our ambition. You're talking about 10 million tons, I understand, to be recycled, and of course we realize that's still quite a long way to go to have more plastics recycled, but these are still important milestones that we have now ahead of us. I would very much like to underline that the type of a collaboration that we're now seeing coming through this value chain based approach which the Circular Plastics Alliance is presenting is something that we would very much like to promote in the DG GROW and the way we approach our policies as well. We are currently working on updating our industry strategy, and one of the ways which we would like to, one of the areas which we would like to strengthen is exactly this approach through, I would say, a new lens, a new way of looking at industries. It's kind of an ecosystem approach where we would like to see how the various stakeholders come together, how they can look at the supply chain, make sure that we don't have any vulnerabilities there, but also look how to accelerate technology uptake. How can we accelerate maybe consumer demand? So all these issues which you can discuss together to make things happen on the ground. And this really is, I think, a big let's say, ask from our side. And I'm sure that the discussions today have helped you think in these very pragmatic ways as well. How can we move towards more delivery on this circular economy, which we have as a kind of a great ambition ahead of us? I have heard you talk about the need for good news, the need for good examples, but also a need for member states to engage more and the Commission to engage more, to provide a coherent policy framework, to provide standards which would be universal. And indeed, these are elements, of course, that the Commission is working on. You can count on DG GROW that is providing secretariat, of course, to the Alliance, but also to our work which we do towards the ecosystems in the European industry. We do have an ambition to follow through with, let's say, similar, maybe a bit differently shaped alliances, which we see as one of the tools to deliver on recovery in Europe and to speed up really the uptake of various technologies as well. I'm very pleased that you have managed to deliver the research and development agenda, and we do hope that based on this and your other engagements, things are going to happen fast, that you are going to push forward to close the loop on the plastic supply chain, and that we are going to really see new sorting facilities, new factories, new technologies coming up soon. So as to maybe some political aspects still, I'm happy to say that we hear from Portugal, who is the next Council presidency, that they are interested in these topics. They have indicated support to this particular alliance. And furthermore, through the work that DG GROW is leading in the work, for example, in standardization, but also in the overall regulatory approach. Again, I would like to mention this ecosystems lens that we are now developing. We would like to see how things would fit together, what kind of problems still remain, how can single markets work in a more seamless way, how can we enforce the rules that we have agreed upon, so that really the products would be also available. I mean, the markets would be available for the good recycled green products. And on this way, I believe the event today and your work ahead will help us deliver on it. So I wish you really a good energy level to continue, and I'm looking forward to the outcomes of the day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maive, for that message. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been a rich and a very full meeting that we've had today of the Circular Plastics Alliance. But this is not the end of our General Assembly. Please don't forget there are 5 side sessions that will follow. You can register for the side sessions if you haven't done so yet, because we would like to know how many of you to expect. I think you remember Elena mentioned the first side session is on European standards and will take place next week on the 11th of December in the morning from 10 till 1 o'clock. As ever, the awesome Secretariat in DG GROW is at your disposal for any questions, but I would like to remind you and stress, underline in bold, please don't forget that everyone needs to sign the competition compliance policy of the Alliance, and this is compulsory. I was looking earlier at the feedback you gave in the last Slido, and all of this information, as well as the presentations, the videos, and any written replies to numerous questions that couldn't be answered will all appear on the CPA platform as usual.
So we've heard from a lot of speakers today, but we haven't heard a lot from you, the participants, and we would really like to give the final word of today to you. So we've opened a new page in Slido. So please open that, connect to the Slido and open that, and enter just one word. What we'd like you to say in one word is, how do you feel about the CPA work after today? So please enter your word. We'll give it a few minutes, and then we'll see how we all feel. So in one word, how do you feel about the CPA work after the General Assembly today? So we have 37 respondents, still growing.
I'm not supposed to comment, but I like what I see.
You're very welcome to comment.
But those are some very encouraging, positive, challenging, motivating words that we see coming out there. That's awesome.
Right, Gail, I think you can bring us back. So that was very encouraging. If we could just have a look at the Slido again, all of us. The word cloud, the one word that stood out was challenging, but it would be good to see some of the other positive words. Positive, confident, motivated, collaborative, encouraging. These are all excellent words. So I think we're on the right track. So on that very positive note, your hosts wish to thank you for your participation and for your engagement today. We would like to wish you a very good afternoon, and also have a great weekend when you get that far. So it's goodbye from me.
Goodbye.